A good wireless audio system can be a really important tool to have, and fortunately, prices have gotten to the point where you don't need to empty your pockets to put a wireless system into your pocket. So today, let's put a couple of wireless systems to the test and see-ity if the De-ity Pocket Wireless can go further down the road to better sound. And before we start talking about both of these awesome little devices, I do need to give a couple of disclosures, plus spoilers as per usual. So first disclosure is that De-ity did send me the Pocket Wireless for free, but I don't have to make a video about it. I don't have to do anything with it. It was basically just a nice gift. And I've actually been using it for about the past 3 months and I've grown to really like it. The Rode Wireless Go is something that I purchased myself at full price when it first came out. I'm not under any obligation to make this video. I don't have to say anything specific in this video, and nobody gets to see this video before I publish it. I'm making it just because I genuinely do like this product, and more importantly, I actually like the De-ity Pocket Wireless better than the Rode Wireless Go. So that's my spoiler on this review. So to just jump ahead to the end of the review, if you have the Rode Wireless Go, it's awesome. You're all set. You don't need to get rid of this to get the De-ity. However, if you don't have a wireless system, that's where I would recommend the De-ity over the Rode, and now I'll explain why. So the thing about these two systems is that they're very, very similar in a lot of ways, and I have to give Rode credit because they were, at least as far as I know, kind of the ones that kicked off this idea of having a very small transmitter receiver setup that's relatively affordable, where the transmitter is also a microphone. That's pretty cool. And now we've seen other offerings from other companies come out, and the De-ity doesn't necessarily bring any revolutionary technology to the table, but it brings a lot of quality of life features that make it, for me at least, much more enjoyable to use than the Rode, and I also think it's overall a better value. Now, also important to note that we're talking about the Rode Wireless Go 1, the original, which is a single transmitter to receiver system. We're not talking about the Rode Wireless Go 2, which, could you believe it, has 2 transmitters. That's a totally different thing. The manufacturer's suggested retail price for the original Wireless Go is $199. The Go 2 is $299, so there's a big price difference there. The MSRP for the De-ity Pocket Wireless is $169, so it's $30 less than the Rode. However, De-ity did send me the Pocket Wireless Mobile Kit, which includes this little tripod and a phone mount, so if you wanted to use it with your phone, you could. And this specific kit retails for $199, which is the same price as the Rode. But if you don't need the tripod or the phone mount, then that means you can get the same single transmitter, single receiver system for $169 versus $199. Now, we all know what they say when you assume things. You save a lot of time and never come to the wrong conclusion. So I'm going to make some assumptions that you're probably already familiar with these basic systems, which, like I mentioned earlier, you have a receiver and you have a transmitter. The transmitter hangs out on the person who's talking, and the receiver goes to your camera or whatever device you want to record the audio. Now, these are both 2.4 gigahertz systems, which is probably just about enough for any normal average creator, video production person, audio production person. And each system has a little clip on the back, which is the exact same size as the accessory shoe on cameras and devices and stuff like that. So you just put the receiver right there, and then the transmitter can either be clipped onto a person's shirt or put into a pocket, and then you run a lavalier microphone. Super important to notice though, one of my favorite mic accessories ever, the Rode Interview Go, which is a stick. And then you put the transmitter for the Wireless Go on here, pop on the windscreen, and now you have a wireless microphone system. I love this, it's really cool. It fits the Wireless Go perfectly because that's what it was designed for. But since we are talking about the same accessory shoe size slot, you can mount the De-ity. And then as you can see it fits in pretty well. And then the windscreen actually fits almost perfectly on top of it, and then you still can use the Interview Go with the De-ity Pocket Wireless. We should probably connect these so that way you can hear what they sound like. But before that, I have been waiting to do something for the 3 months that I've had this, which is, still has a little plastic protective coating on here. And that was the most important part of this video. So the setup process is pretty easy. You just turn on the receiver, you turn on the transmitter, they're automatically paired on both of these systems. You then just connect them to the microphone jack on your camera or whatever audio device that you're using, and then you've got the transmitter, the microphones right here. So just for a basic sound quality test. Right now I'm using the Shure SM7B running through the Rodecaster Pro. And now this is the Rode Wireless Go. So this is the Rode Wireless Go through the transmitter. And this is the Deity Pocket Wireless. So this is the Deity Pocket Wireless. And again, the Rode Wireless Go, Deity Pocket Wireless, Deity Pocket Wireless. And what we'll do for the remainder of this video is actually kind of remove the SM7B, and we will just stick with using one of these. I will put a note on screen, whichever one is currently being used, the Deity or the Rode. Now, the thing that is nice about these is if you're in a pinch and you need good audio, you have your microphone right here and you just clip it on your shirt. However, I'm personally not a fan of this. I don't think this is a great look, having a big just a thing right in front of your person when they're talking. When I see people wearing the Rode Wireless Go or another one of these systems, it's the first thing I notice in the frame, and I find that really, really distracting. Both systems also come with windscreens. So the Rode has a little thing that clips on right here in case you're outside and you need to protect it from wind, but then this becomes even more distracting. The Deity is extremely similar. You can clip it to your shirt, and then it also comes with a windscreen that clips in, and then you can use this in the wind. Now, if you have to choose between somebody not having a microphone on them and bad audio versus somebody having a distracting mic like this and good audio, I would lean towards prioritizing the good audio. So I think these are great if you're in a pinch. However, 99% of the time that I'm using these, I'm using them with a lavalier microphone system, and the transmitter is just in my pocket. And this is an area where the Deity really does outdo the Rode. So you probably notice the Deity comes in this little case right here, which is bigger than the case that the Rode comes in, and you might think, hey Tom, but smaller and more compact. But this gets very cramped and very full very fast, whereas the Deity case is still really small, and you have foam cutouts for both parts of the system, plus little nets up here to keep track of everything, and it comes with a lavalier microphone. So whether you get the regular set or the mobile set, you're gonna get a lavalier microphone with it. With the Rode, I had to buy a lavalier microphone separately. The Rode Lavalier Go, like the one that's kind of made for it, is usually about $70, so that's more money that you're investing. It's a great microphone, and it sounds really good, but also so does the one that comes with the Deity. This is a great microphone, and if you can see right here, the Deity actually has a locking 3.5mm jack. So on the transmitter, the input has threads around it, and then you connect the lavalier microphone, lock it down, and now it's not going to come out. On the Rode, you can just pull the microphone out. This is normally what you find on much more expensive wireless systems, and I think that that is awesome. I should also mention some of those other quality of life features that I talked about with the Deity, a big one being just the power switch. It just has a switch that you flip on or off, and that's it. The Rode has a button on the bottom of the transmitter and the receiver that you have to hold down for 3 seconds and then turn it on. It doesn't sound like a big deal, and it's not, and that system does prevent you from accidentally turning things on or off. However, there have been so many times where I think I hold it down long enough and then I stop and I'm like, oh wait, it didn't turn on. And I hold it down again and again. And the thing that should take 4 seconds, probably just because I'm impatient, ends up taking like 20 seconds just to turn on or turn off. And the transmitter on the Deity has a little button on the side that you can use for relinking and repairing if you need to. But if you just press it once, you'll see a red light start blinking, and that means the transmitter's been muted. And if you press it again, it will unmute. Very important to make sure that that red light's not blinking when you start recording and that you didn't accidentally mute the system. So I want to set these up as lavaliers because that's how I prefer to use them. And again, like I mentioned, I think that's one of the huge strengths of the Deity is that it just comes with a really nice little lavalier microphone. So I think I have a brilliant way of labeling them so you can tell which one is which. The one with the R on it is the really good Deity sounding microphone, and the one with the D on it is the delightful Rode sounding microphone. I'm just kidding, that would make no sense. The R is for the Rode and the D is for the Deity, because that's how words work. And of course, I'll keep putting a label on screen as I've been doing throughout this entire video so you know which microphone you're listening to. Probably makes this redundant, but oh well. Also, just a heads up, whenever you're positioning a lavalier microphone, if possible, try to position it on the person's chest and you're probably gonna get the best sound. It's very common a lot of times for people to clip them way up on collars and things, but then the microphone, lavalier microphones, which are usually omnidirectional, which means they just eat sound from every direction. If they're under your chin and under your neck, they're picking up weird versions of the sound waves that are coming out of your mouth. If it's down at your chest, it's It's a little easier for the microphones to pick up more natural sounding sound waves, so you're probably gonna get better sound if the lavalier microphone is positioned a little lower. But if all you've got is a collar of a shirt, or you need to be creative and hide it under a hat or a wig or something, of course you can totally do that. Just do some sound tests to make sure they sound good no matter what system you're using before you actually start recording. And like I said earlier, I've been using the Deity Pocket Wireless for about 3 months now. I've used it on a lot of different videos and streams, even though I haven't specifically mentioned it yet. If you watch my GoPro Hero 10 review, that entire video was done with the Pocket Wireless, so you can hear how it works in a real world situation if you want to check that out. Now, before we do some more rigorous testing of these two systems, let's dive in and talk about some of the specs to see what makes each one special. One of the biggest questions you'll probably have with either of these systems is what is the distance, what is the range that you can use them for? The Rode Wireless Go is rated for 70 meters, which is about 229 feet, and the Pocket Wireless, not quite at that distance, is rated for 65 meters, which is 213 feet. Now, what makes this interesting to me is that even though the Deity is rated for less distance, I've actually had better luck with it, and I've had fewer instances of it dropping out. In fact, so far I actually haven't had it drop out. Battery life is another concern, of course. A big downside to both of these systems is that they have built-in batteries that are non-replaceable. The Rode, which I've had for about almost 2 years now, is rated for 7 hours of battery life, and I have no problem still reaching that time. Not that I ever really use it for that long, but I rarely need to charge it. I basically only charge it out of paranoia and anxiety, which is why I do most of the things I do in my life anyway. However, once the battery starts dying and failing and the battery health goes down, you can't just replace it. You got to get a whole new system. That's a bummer for both of these, just in terms of creating e-waste and non-repairability. The Deity, though, is rated for 5 hours instead of 7 hours, so not quite as long battery life, but again, I don't really use these for 5 to 7 hour continuous stints. That's just not how my workflow is, so it hasn't been any kind of issue for me. But just be aware that if you're planning to use these on a full day of shooting, like a 12 or a 14-hour day, and you're not going to have time to charge them, you're probably going to need backups or different systems. But the big thing here, the big reason I wanted to make this video is because of those quality of life improvements that the Deity has. It's not that either one of these is big, but this one is just a little smaller, easier to use, easier to hide. This is a little bigger and bulkier, although I'm being very generous with my use of the word bulky because this is still very compact. The Deity has the locking microphone, the Rode doesn't. So that means if I pull on this, nothing will happen. If I pull on this, then the microphone comes out. The fact that the Deity includes the lavalier is huge for me and my specific workflow, and the display on the receiver of the Deity is, in my opinion, better than the receiver of the Rode Wireless Go, the other one. They're both good, but the Deity is just clearer and easier to see, and I just find it more useful and easier to understand. The Deity is also nice because while both systems let you see your levels bouncing up and down in real time, the Deity actually has markers for -12 and -6 decibels, so you can really kind of dial in your sound more easily, and I appreciate that. And in terms of gain, the Rode Wireless Go kind of just has low, medium, and high. You can just sort of adjust it that way. And I believe there's 6 decibel increments, whereas the Deity has 3 decibel increments and there's 10 different levels. So you can keep pushing the button, which can kind of be annoying if you're trying to dial it in exactly right and you go past, like, you're trying to get to 6 and then you go to 7, you got to go like 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and go back around again. But you have a lot more fine control over the Deity's gain than you do on the Rode Wireless Go. When you just say those things, it doesn't sound like much, but when you're actually using the device, they're just small quality of life improvements that make it more enjoyable to use, and considering the fact that it's cheaper, that's why I would recommend the Deity over the Rode. You know how much I friggin' love Rode, so it means a lot that I would say I recommend the Deity over the Rode, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you already have the Rode, it's great, and just keep it and be happy with it because this thing is awesome. But let's put these to the test now, because maybe, just maybe, that will help bring out some key differences that will make your decision a little easier. So I'm going to do a basic comparison of something I've noticed where it seems like the Deity has outperformed the Rode. There have been times where I've been working in here or streaming in here, and I need to go get something from our garage, which in a straight line is probably about 40 feet or 12 meters away, but to get there, I got to go around a whole bunch of walls. The walls, of course, have cables and pipes and things in them, and then the garage itself is a fire door and insulation. So now I've got both microphones recording, and I'm basically just gonna walk out into our garage and see how far I can go and which one is the best. All right, so now I'm walking through our kitchen, walking through our living room, going towards the garage door, going towards the garage door, opening the garage door. I'm in the garage. So it'll be interesting to see if you can still hear me on either of these or both of them. And now I'm walking even further away. I'm at the corner of the garage right now because I want to go outside. If either of them are, that's the better one, and you should definitely get that one. But I can't imagine either of them are. Would make sense. It's like not what I hope for. Back in here, so we'll see if the signal had cut out, at what point will it come back in? So looking at that, they performed fairly evenly. I'm impressed that both of them worked as I went into the garage, because I kind of wouldn't have expected that with all the different barriers, interference, and definitely no direct line of sight situation happening. The road started to cut out as I went to the corner of the garage, and to the outside you really didn't hear anything, whereas the De-ity held on a little bit longer and was actually able to pick up a few things I said when I was outside, but it wasn't reliable. It was still cutting in and out. But if I had to choose a winner, it would be the De-ity, because it did work a bit more reliably and work for longer, and they both picked up signal. As soon as they were able to, they both seamlessly picked up their signal again and held it until they came all the way back in here. But that's a very specific use case scenario. So let's try some other range tests by putting the Pocket Wireless in the pocket and hitting the road to go out to a different spot outside. So now I'm outside and it's kind of windy, so that might be helpful or not. And basically I'm just going to keep the mics on, and then I'm going to wirelessly go down this road and just see how far I go before stuff cuts out. So here we go. Now we will watch and see. We've got both microphones going, and now I just have to go for a little bit, I guess, and test the GoPro. So this was kind of an interesting development with my test, which was I didn't realize I was walking away with my back to the camera the whole time. So line of sight was obstructed by me. And so almost immediately it dropped signal. And you didn't get to hear any of my amazing witty banter. Did you hear, speaking of microphones, have you heard about the microphone company that never did customer surveys? They weren't very good at handling feedback, because feedback in microphones are a thing, it's terms and stuff. And then as soon as I turned around and started coming back, it was when I was about 50 feet away from the cameras that the signal started coming in a bit more clearly. Which performed the other? In my experience, the De-ity has been really, really good, and I really like it. You can't go wrong with either of them. I burped. Keep saying that, can't go wrong with either of them. Amazing. Okay, we're getting feet away I am from the cameras, but I would say I'm probably 50 feet away from them now. Probably 30 feet, 20 feet, and now I'm real close. They're just right there. So there's everything. It's kind of honestly a little bit disappointing. I don't know. Maybe my test was bad, but you know, do with it what you will. All right, someone's coming to arrest me. I gotta go. This is always kind of a thing that happens when you're using drones, where even when you're flying where you're allowed to, even when you have your FAA license, people suddenly like to think that they're experts in everything, and they get real weird about the sky. You don't own the sky. Coming back to the whole point of the tests though, I probably did a bad job because I didn't do direct line of sight, and I guess I should have. I've only got one camera going, so it's the only one I can use. Here's the Deity Pocket Wireless facing the camera, and if I keep it facing the camera but I go around the car, I'm going around the car. Now there's a giant metal car between us, and now I'm coming back around on the other side of the car, but the microphone was facing the camera the whole time. Okay, now I'm just on the GoPro real quick because I had a thought that I realized I didn't include. earlier, which is, I should say, if you want something that is insanely reliable for wireless audio, that's where you need to buy something like, I don't know, a Sennheiser G4, some kind of professional level wireless device. Those are going to cost you significantly more money, maybe between $600, $800, even upwards of $1,000 more dollars. For $169, $199, very much consumer level wireless audio systems, I do think both of these perform very well, and as long as they have a clear signal, the audio quality is nice. And now that you've seen and heard both of these, hopefully you can see what the difference is and which one would be right for you. Hopefully you can also see why they're both awesome, but why at a less expensive price with the quality of life features and what seems to be a bit better performance. I prefer and recommend the Deity, but you can't go wrong either way. And speaking of things that are reliable, thank you to everybody who helps support my channel through Patreon and YouTube channel memberships. I really, really appreciate that. I love ya. And if you want to know more details about the Rode Wireless Go, check out my full review here where I dive into everything super in depth.